Hi everybody there, and welcome to a discussion today about supplier master data. This will be a brief discussion of how More4apps Supplier Wizard can be used to plug process gaps to ensure your supplier master is in great shape, not just to accommodate the Nevo 1 requirements, but also in general to ensure you have the best data set possible for the day-to-day running of your business. Organizations using Nevo 1's product range will know the criticality of accurate supplier master data to invoicing and all those financial processes. And in this session, we want to show you how More4apps Supplier Wizard can help you tackle that more effectively. As Stephanie said, I'm Andrew Gooch. I'm an Oracle technical specialist for about 20 years and a More4apps technical and functional resource for more than half that time. And I was the lead developer for the Supplier Wizard until quite recently. So let's get started. This is the agenda for today. First up, we'll ask David Bush from Nevo 1 to welcome you all and to say a few words about what you might expect to take away from today's session. And I'll follow that up briefly, introducing More4apps, who we are and how we help people. We'll talk about scenarios common to Nevo 1 customers and also in more general terms about common and likely challenges your AP teams will be facing with supplier data management. I'll give a brief overview of how the More4apps tool has solved those challenges for our customers, and then I'll do a quick demo of Supplier Wizard. The goal with that is to showcase some practical steps you can take to manage the data set you need to use for Nevo 1's product, and beyond that to improve your supplier master data management. And we'll finish off with questions. I'd like to encourage everyone during the course of the session who has questions to type them into the chat, and I'll try to address all of those at the end, or we'll follow up with you afterwards to make sure you have your answers. And also, if after today's session you would like to arrange for a more customized session with your company, or perhaps to arrange a free trial of More4apps Supplier Wizard to test within your organization, just let us know. First up, I'll pass the mic over to David from Nevo 1 just to say a few words. Well, thanks for that, David. Right, so who are More4apps? For those that aren't familiar with us, maybe a bit of background. More4apps has been in the business of providing upload tools in the Oracle market for over 20 years now, and has around 50 tools for EBS and now for cloud. In that time, it's grown around the globe with functional and technical customer support in all corners of the world, and is generally recognized as the market leader in spreadsheet-based loaders in Oracle. This is the approach that we advocate here. We're championing the use of spreadsheets as the front end to Oracle, in our case, Microsoft Excel. And spreadsheets are great. They provide wide visibility of your data across broad sets of columns, rows and rows of capacity to load lots of things at once, and nice features like copy and paste to accelerate your data entry. Plus, they're in digital format, so you can fill them up from other digital sources relatively easily. Basically, the idea is to fill in the data into the worksheet and load that data into Oracle without the need to click through all those Oracle forms. The data also goes the other way. With our products, you can draw information out of Oracle into the worksheet, manipulate it, make changes, etc., and load it back as updates, or perhaps use it as a basis for reporting or any other process you might have within the business. All the uploads use the Oracle seeded public APIs and conform with your Oracle support obligations. Spreadsheet loading tools are not only going to help you reduce or eliminate a lot of your manual data entry, but also clear backlogs of work caused by slow data entry processes. So what are the challenges with supplier master data in particular? With master data, the main focus is on creating a trusted single source of truth. You want the highest quality data possible. Aside from the continual day-to-day upkeep of the supplier master, there are scenarios we regularly see cropping up within our clients. Nevo 1 customers need to ensure their supplier site and contact information is fit for purpose and for their processes. Also, mergers, migrations, inbound into EBS will lead to a lot of newly created suppliers. And outbound from EBS, you would expect a cleaning exercise to maximize the quality of the data within the new system. And that can mean a lot of work inspecting the existing information and determining what's relevant for the future. You might also have regular jobs updating particular values against the supplier database, such as the ones shown here. Or in special cases, an external driver might coerce you to address the nature of your supplier master data setup. For example, the COVID-19 pandemic we're living through has led to a number of our clients looking to renegotiate aspects of their supplier relationship, and that all leads to work reflecting those new rules in the supplier master. And Oracle's user forms don't really support these processes well. For a start, they are drilled down, so they don't provide an overview, since elements are hidden on multiple sub-level forms. With a spreadsheet, you're much better off. The 2D grid layout lets you easily glance over the whole setup and highlights where data is missing from some suppliers or grossly misaligned. One of the most common problems with Supplier Master, when Supplier Master hasn't been maintained as well as it might, are duplicated suppliers. These could be there for historical reasons, such as mergers or migrations. But whatever the reason, I've seen instances where the same supplier is recorded 10, 15 times. And if invoices are being raised against those independently, you're going to have some real trouble associating those transactions when you're reporting or volume discounts, so things like that. And obviously, we need to keep our supplier banking details up to date to avoid missing any payments. And that can be a complicated process for large numbers of accounts or suppliers and supplier sites. And there's a lot of other areas which can change over time. And when they do, those changes need to rip through to the AP system. A reorg means your GL structures change, and that will need to be reflected against the suppliers. And when documentation comes in, or new contracts, etc., attaching those files to the suppliers can be a headache too. As we all know, the major problem in business is that when things need to be done, they need doing yesterday. Much of what we have to do with supplier master data is short notice. So obviously, the quicker we can get things done, better. But with the Oracle system, the forms and interfaces don't lend themselves for large volumes of changes or additions in short time frames. I've done bench tests with the Oracle forms, which indicate between 5 and 7 minutes to onboard a supplier fit for payment. And even discounting allowances for errors. If you're only able to enter in 10 an hour, then you have some major problems when you start talking about hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of suppliers. And the same is true of updates. Updating fields nested deep down in the form structure takes a lot of time and effort and is very prone to error. We'll see in my demonstration shortly how the spreadsheet approach really lends itself to those sorts of problems. As evidence of the gains you might expect using the Supplier Wizard, here's some graphs drawn up from statistics gathered at the American Red Cross. The way Red Cross runs its business in America means the upkeep of a lot of suppliers. So any updates or jobs which need to run across the whole supplier master can be daunting. I think these numbers speak for themselves. Red Cross had processes that took 3 weeks, which they could accomplish in 2 days with More4apps products and lower headcount too. So in ROI terms, the return on investment, the tools paid for themselves many times over. So I'm going to give you a brief demonstration now of the Supplier Wizard and show you some examples of how it might work to reduce your data entry bottlenecks. This is the Supplier Wizard here. I'm going to run through a general scenario first and look at how the tool works, and then we'll look at some of the Nivo 1 requirements. So looking at the spreadsheet here, we've got a spreadsheet open. This is the welcome sheet that you get with some links for support. And what's most interesting is that you get some new controls in Excel. So you've got several tabs up here. This is the main one. So this one has the buttons for controlling the processes. And if I click on an example sheet here, you can see that the way it's laid out, there's clear colored columns for data elements, and there's some sort of gray columns for feedback. So you can see that this has come back from some loads in the past. So with the tool, you can create sheets according to the requirement you need. So this is a simple sheet where I've got some supplier creation, onboarding type data to be loaded. It's empty at the moment. I've got the supplier and site information on this, only on this sheet, and I'll touch on how you can add more columns or fewer columns as we go through the demonstration. But right now I'm just working in Excel. So I would just be putting in my information into the worksheet, either by copy and paste or typing. And I'm not really interacting with Oracle yet. So let's change that. I'll log in. I can do it with any action, but I'll just click on here. Any of the actions in the worksheet will do it. I can set up multiple URLs. So if I've got prod, dev, QA instances, I can link to them all within the sheet, and I can add new ones pretty easily as I go on. So I'll just select one, log in. And when I log in, I'm going to pass through the Oracle Gateway, and I'll get that familiar login form that you're used to seeing when you go in natively through the forms. Using password, go in, and then I need to choose my responsibility. So the tool is tied to maintaining supplier forms, so I need to have access to that form to go any further here. So I'll just choose a responsibility that has that access, in this case purchasing. All these other ones are available to me. A lot of them would be blocked if I tried to use them because they're not associated with supplier maintenance. Once I click on continue, it's going to log on, it's going to do a little bit of caching, get my data set up, my flex field set up, my languages, all those sorts of things. So now that I'm signed in, you can see it's actually got my sign information up there. If I want to see it, I can hide that if I'm not interested. Just click on that button there. But I'm ready to start loading some suppliers. So what would I do? Well, obviously, it's Excel, so I can start populating information into the spreadsheet. Just what I want to create a supplier, call it Nevo1 demo supplier, say. And there's not a whole lot of information I need to create a supplier. I could just load that one there. But let's cut to the chase. That's not the way you're going to create a whole lot of savings for your business. What we really advocate with More4apps is if you can use the digital copy and paste, things like that, bring your information in from source documents. So if you can collate them quickly and easily, then you can transfer that information to the spreadsheet really easily and get working. So here's some supplier information that has been passed through. This is just example information. It's been passed through from someone in the AP team or to the AP team, from another business unit perhaps. And I can just paste that in. So I've aligned that source document where I do the collection with column layout here. It's a pretty simple task, and we can always help you through that. And I can just paste it in. I'll paste it in values only just to preserve formatting of this columns, colors and what have you. And if I scroll across, you can see that because I have already done that access, that the source document matches my supplier sheet, everything arrives in the right place. And I can start loading that now. But you can see that there's not that much in the worksheet. And if you look very closely at column 10 here, there's some other information that's in the sheet that I've sort of seeded myself prior to this demonstration. So all of these suppliers would have the same value in my example. So they're all of the type supplier. They're all going to have the default terms of that, and the pay group will be that one there. So rather than collecting the same value for every single supplier, we can put it in here as a default, and that will drop in. So wherever there's something missing in the sheet, it'll put that value in. Now, if I have a value in there, say like that, that will ignore it and it won't drop it in. It's not going to overwrite anything that's in the worksheet. And if I scroll across, I can see that everything on that side has also got the defaults I needed. So I haven't, for example, bothered to tell every supplier that its country is the US because they all sit in that same territory. So that can save me a whole lot of time with data entry. And when I'm ready, I can just go ahead and do an upload. Now I can upload a selection like that, which is basically what I've drawn the cursor over, or I can just do the whole worksheet. So we'll just do the whole sheet, and that's going to run off, going to warn me, make sure I'm happy that I want to do the whole lot in case I've got scrolls of information in the worksheet. And that's going to run off, do the validation, check that everything makes sense. Obviously, all those columns have Oracle rules behind them. You can see the defaults drop in. In this tool, they're highlighted with a color, so you can recognize which elements you entered and which ones the wizard entered. And where it hits an error, it just gives me a warning. Now, I can keep getting those warnings for every supplier error that I get, or I can say, no, what, I don't want to keep receiving them. I'll just deal with them as we get to the end of the process. So you can see as it goes through the list there, it loads and validates everything. And when it's finished, I get some feedback from the spreadsheet telling me that's occurred. And if I scroll back to the top, I can see where that error that I had in the prompt comes up. So that's telling me that there's what I saw in the prompt window, that value is invalid. If I scroll across to the right here, I can see it's also highlighted there. So how do I fix that? Well, I could copy and paste that value down. Say if I knew that that was the value here, or I type it in directly, but I might not know what the value is. So if I double click on that value, if I go where that site is, you can see I've got 2 sites. If I scroll down here, I can see that that's highlighted in the form. So I can use these edit forms to do a really customized manual correction to make sure I'm getting the values that are correct. So I'll just choose one that's in the list that's appropriate. These are all seeded from Oracle. They've come from the login information I gave on with my responsibility and so on. So if I click on OK, that goes back. You see the red drops out, and it's ready to be reloaded. So I'm still on that row, but I can just do now, in this case, the selections. I won't reload the other ones. Well, I won't attempt to, and it'll just do that load. So now I'm in a situation where all of those suppliers have been loaded in their sites. And if I was to go into Oracle now, I'd see them. But I don't have to go into Oracle. If I know the suppliers that I'm interested in this case, I've got the supplier numbers and the names. I can just copy that information down to some blank rows in the worksheet down here, paste that in, and I can download those values. So I can get everything that's held in Oracle from those suppliers I created. And I'll also see anything that's been defaulted by the Oracle process if the columns I have in the worksheet contain that information. Now I don't have to just, I'll just scroll across so you can see those supply sites are all in there. It's the same information that we saw in the source. Now, if I don't know the supplier names themselves or the defining attributes, I can also download by an edit form. And with that edit form, I have the opportunity to sort of define through filters, select sort of a customized search criteria, for example. So for example, I could maybe choose all the ones that I've downloaded today. So if I uploaded today, sorry. So if I just put in a wildcard here, I can see all of the suppliers that meet that criteria. There's about 80 in there, and I could select, a few of them like that and download them into the worksheet. So I've got pretty good visibility of what's in Oracle, and that's really useful because that means I don't have to go into Oracle to do everything. Now, one of the scenarios that Nevo 1 requires is that all your contact information is nicely aligned for that invoicing financial information to be processed correctly. So I've created another sheet here, which is really defined around the details for supplier and site contacts. And I'll just explain here. If I click on the setup, I've got a few controls for various things I can manipulate. And one of them, if I click on this customized fields form, allows me to choose suppliers, columns, sections, things that I want to upload. So in this case, this form, I've only got the supplier section. I don't have the classifications. I'm not interested in banking in this case. I've got the site information. I've got some contact columns, and I've got the site contact columns, so where the contact has been assigned to an address, site, and so on. So that's what I've done to create this sheet. And if you can see, if I scroll across, I've already downloaded these suppliers like we just saw. I've got addresses and suppliers, but I don't have any contact information. So I might then have another sort of sourcing operation where I go around and I collect the information that I need for those contacts. And so that's what I've done here. I've got some contacts for each of those suppliers, and I'll just transfer those sets of information in. I'll just do it piecemeal in this case. So the bottom one, I'll put it on that side there. Just make sure I paste into the correct columns. Because in this case, I don't have, them all separated by suppliers. I'll just do it one by one. I'll just do 2 examples. So here I've got for this supplier, which has only got 1 site, I've got 2 supplier site contacts, and I've got on the second site of the second supplier, I've got 2 contacts as well. So I just need to tell the wizard what I want to do with it. I want to do create. Let's copy that down and onto that one. I could also use defaults if I wanted to, but I'm going to do some other processing later on, so I don't want defaults in the sheet. I'll just go back to the top here, select those two suppliers and upload them. So you can see it's not doing anything with the site and status, site and suppliers. It's just warning me that there's nothing happening here, but these are the interesting things there. These are loaded. So if I download those 2 suppliers now, just like I did before, I'll see those supplier site contact records are there now. You see it just inserts that extra row because I've got 2 sites now at that level. So sorry, 2 contacts at that level. So there we are. In that site, I've got those 2, and at that site there, I've got those 2. Now, it could be that I want to assign those contacts from one site to the other. How do I go about doing that? Well, that's pretty easy. I've got sort of a generic unassociated supplier section here. You can see it didn't download any of those suppliers. And that's because by default, the wizard doesn't expect me to be that interested in contacts that are already assigned. But it may be that I want to see the contacts that are assigned and do the task of assigning them to another site. So I'll just click on that button. You can see it highlights that ready. And if I copy that down now, that second supplier, download it, not only will I get the information over at site level, but I will get those contacts appearing here at the supplier level. So those are now available for me to associate with other sites. I'll just scroll across. The information is there from the other sheet. So what do I do here? Well, let's just use the edit form and I'll show you how that works. Double click on that. So go across to the supplier contact. I've got 2 here if I click through the tabs. So the first one I want to assign to another site. So that first one is on the Barton, on the Heath site. So I want to assign it now to the Barton, so it appears available for both. So I'll just click on that. I can do the same in the form for the other one, or I could just copy and paste that down in the worksheet. It's probably a bit easier in this case. So that's going to assign them to that. I'll just do the upload again. You'll see that those loaded statuses come in, and I'll just download them. I'll just click that off because we don't need to see them over there anymore. If I download that value there, like I did first, I can see that I've got, when that's finished the download, I'll scroll across and I'll see that those 2 supplier site contacts exist for both the sites. So there's site 1, there's site 2, and there are the 2 contacts for each, which is the same person. And I can create unassigned contacts and do the whole thing through that mechanism if I want to. So the other thing to talk about is updates. As you saw with that form that I had for creating columns, I can create any sheet I like. So I've created a sheet here that's got quite a limited number of columns on it because I'm doing a simple change. I want to just do something across the board for a whole lot of suppliers, but I'm making the same change. So if I download these suppliers, just for the sake of the recording, I've done this already so that I don't have to do it again. So I download those suppliers in, and there they are. And you can see the terms exist and the pay group is there, but I want to change it to these values here. Well, how I go about doing that? Well, I can type that in, obviously, like we saw before, or I could use the edit form. But I've got that default feature there, so I don't have to do that. I can just literally delete the values that are there, and it'll drop those defaults in. So I can make that blanket change. I just defaulted the update mode to be update. I can do that blanket change in split seconds. So that just runs through, does them all at the same time. So if I download those suppliers again, you'll see all those changes have been reflected. And there's a lot of power here. You can maintain any number of columns you like. You can do lots of things at once. I've got another sheet here. I'm not going to run through this now because I'm conscious of time. But this particular data set has columns for supplier. It has columns for site, like we saw for the other one, but it also has flex field stuff. I'll click on that in a minute. And if I go to the right, it also has banking information. So I can create the bank accounts if I need to. And there's some controls. I can also create the ownership and the bank accounts on the fly as I go. And I would just upload those in the same way. So the other thing I was just going to just mentioned, oh yes, the descriptive flex fields. I'll just go across to that one where it had it. It's over here somewhere. I open up the edit form here. And I go across to that button there. You can see support for your context-sensitive attributes. If I change the context, I'll get the different columns. The ones that are grayed out just means that I don't have the value in the column in the worksheet, so I can do all those changes. And you can see that the validation rules that are defined behind the attributes, all those lists of values are there for me. So I can manipulate the flex fields just as easily as I can any other column. So the only other thing to mention is you can do attachments. I'm just going to see if I've got an example where the attachment columns are in the worksheet. You can send those files across. I'm not too sure if I've got them on this. Actually, for the sake of the demo, dummy recording, I might add those columns in somewhere just so we can see them because they don't seem to be in this worksheet, but that's all right. So I hope that was illuminating. Hopefully you'll be able to imagine how the tool could be employed to relieve the pain points in your business, either at BAU or at migration time, and also for your Nevo 1 requirements. As I said, we've had great feedback from our customers on how More4apps helped them with their data migration for pre-migration tasks like data cleansing, but also an actual migration of data. And obviously there are real wins with BAU. Teams can spend less time traversing multiple screens when setting up new suppliers and doing mass updates. So they can spend more time concentrating on their core business, the really important tasks. And it ties into what I said at the beginning when we discussed all the potential problems. If we can keep a high quality supplier master, then many of the niggling problems we face in the day-to-day running of our business go away. Late payments, complaints, all that stuff just drop away. So that brings me to the end of the presentation content for today. You can, of course, reach out to either David or myself at your convenience for follow-up questions or further information, either about the functionality you've seen today or things on the commercial side. I'm personally not on the sales team, so I'll see that any of those sorts of inquiries go to the appropriate person within our organization. And I'm sure David will be able to guide you through on the Nevo 1 side. But we have some time available now, so I'll open up the floor now to questions. And perhaps we can hit some of those now, and the whole audience will be able to benefit from hearing the answers. I'll try my best to answer everything More4apps related, but if I can't, I'll take them offline and get a response back to you, or at least point you in the right direction. And just for your benefit, Stephanie, maybe a seated question about how does the licensing work in terms of seated users and support costs and what have you. I'm not going to give any numbers, but I can tell them how that process, how that sits. Great. Well, that's the end of the demonstration. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your time and your attention. I hope you've got something valuable out of today's session. Thanks a lot.